Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Manic Energy. Today I'm joined by Lucas Mistelske to talk about data centers, how they're built, how they operate, but also general business and growing businesses in your community. I'm Ryan Swar, and this is Manic Energy, a podcast that dives into the fast-moving world of energy, business, and the people powering it all. From bold ideas to real-world innovation, we're talking breakthroughs, market moves, and the community shaping what's next. Whether you're building for the future or just here for the fun, welcome to the chaos. So Lucas, thanks for being here today. It's you corrected me earlier. Is it Lucas with a C?
With an L. Actually.
Lucas with an L.
Yeah,
all right, there we go. Lucas with an L. I like that. Have you had to use that one before? Have you gotten to use that one before?
That might be the first time.
It's like I think actually spur of the moment.
I don't know. Just came out.
It's got to be. It's going to have to be a thing.
There are some Lucases with a K though. That can really throw you off sometimes. Yeah.
But also with an L.
Also with an L.
There you go.
Yeah, we all share that commonality.
So thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Absolutely. We don't know each other well, but I feel like we do since we talked for an hour before this, and I think we seem to have a similar approach towards life, at least as far as I can tell so far. I think it'd be really cool. I've been thinking for a while that it'd be cool to get people a background on data centers. I mean, it's this term that's been going around, and it seems to me that a lot of people don't really understand how they function or what they do. And so for me, it's really, all right, politics aside, good or bad, indifferent, it's really just what are they and how do they operate? And I think when I had heard you speak before, it seemed evident that you have a really deep technical understanding of them based on your working history. So maybe if you would just start by explaining your background and really how we got here today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a really small town in western Minnesota, Frazee, Minnesota, home of the world's largest turkey. No offense if you haven't heard of it before. It's only 1,200 people. But I came to Duluth to go to school in the late 90s and went to UMD and got some certifications, got out in the workforce right away, and was working for a manufacturing company called TrueRide in Duluth here, and just developed some really great friendships, but also learned a ton from the three owners, Dave, Greg, and Tony, of that business on how to be an entrepreneur and really make a cultural business that provides value in your community and abroad. So we actually took components from the skateboard parks that we were making and made these, you call them, byproducts, or you call them co-products when they're valuable. We made two companies out of that, Lull Designs and Epicurean Cutting Surfaces. And there's some fun stories. I'll spare you those for right now. But those 8 years were really instrumental in shaping my experience as both an entrepreneur, but in the business community as a young business IT guy, working for a manufacturer, going from making custom things to making repeatable things, like learning those different technologies and applying them. And it was a fantastic way to start my career. And then I had the opportunity to move into a full technology management operations before joining my last job, which was I worked in the data center industry. I worked for a company based out of Cedar Rapids when they expanded to Duluth back in 2011. The company's name was Involta. We changed our name to Arc Data Centers a little over a year ago. But that experience of joining a very small company, that had built a data center out in a cornfield in Iowa in the 2007 timeframe, people were like, "What's a data center?" Even the banks at the time were like, "What? Where's your combine? What are you talking about?" They didn't understand the concept. We were going to build this really resilient box to help support businesses and technology growth. And so, bringing that to Duluth, I was able to join the organization as a data center manager. So responsible for operating the facilities in Duluth. We actually had two in Duluth. One, when I started, we rehabilitated the old Doherty's hardware building and turned it into a data center. And then we were building a greenfield data center up behind the United Healthcare building up on Rice Lake Road. And so anyway, it was a great experience. I spent 14 years there, moved into director of data center operations after my data center manager role, and had the ability to build data centers across the country and manage all of our fleet of facilities. So at our peak, I think we had 14 data centers in 8 states. And I had the opportunity to work with our CTO and designing and building data centers in different regions, different climates, different risk factors. You know, it was just fascinating to be part of a technology industry where you still actually made something. You know, a lot of technology is, you know, it's service, it's SaaS software, and there's, you know, sure, there's something to show for it on your computer, but I came from manufacturing as my first job where you got like to really make something and be proud of it. Well, data centers was kind of like that because we were making these insanely robust buildings to really support the economy and how businesses work today. And it just brought such a sense of pride and joy. And so I joined the executive team and then moved back into more of the technology side of the business and took on all of our client-facing technology organizations. So everybody from, you know, you're calling the service delivery center to custom high-end engineers working solely on some of our largest clients and serving, you know, SaaS software providers across the world. So that was my last 14 years of experience. And now just recently in the fall, I had the opportunity to join Giant Voices, and super excited. It's just a fantastic group of individuals. I love the folks I work with, and I'm having just a blast. And we have some really big ideas about how we're going to change the world. So if we have time for all that, we can get into all that.
We'll have to make time. I want to hear about that. Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting story. I have to ask. I was going to save it, but I need to know now. I won't be able to get away from it.
Yeah.
Did True Ride make the skate park in Superior, Wisconsin?
We did.
All right.
That's actually how I met the guys.
So I spent time there all the time growing up. I used to ride that half pipe all the time.
Yeah. It was a great park. Actually,
that park taught me resilience.
Yeah. That's funny. You know what? The great story about that park was that they actually didn't choose one construction company to build all of it. They actually had two companies build parts of it at the time for phase one, and then they brought True Ride back. So we built part of it, and then another manufacturer built part of it. I don't remember his name right now. But then we came back and built phase two and phase three. But that's how I met those guys. I was working at a coffee shop, and my best friend worked for him. And he's like, hey, we're over in Superior building this park. Like, you should come over after you're done working. And I was like, yeah, okay. So they didn't ask, but I just brought like a, pressed pot of coffee because I was done with work. I brought a pot of coffee over. They just thought that was the coolest thing that I brought them coffee on the pad. And they were like, hey, yeah, you should come work with us.
There you go.
A funny story how that worked. But yeah, Superior.
That one decision might have influenced what got you into the I think you said Greg, Tony, and I don't know them.
Dave. Yep.
That one decision to bring them coffee brought you into that, which got you into data centers, which got you to Giant, which leads to changing the world.
I love that. Yeah, that's exactly right. And, people are always like, oh, would you change things? Would you do things different in your life? And I'm like, no way. Like, I love what I'm doing. My wife, my kids. Oh my gosh, I couldn't be happier. Yeah.
So your time at a data center, that's awesome, by the way. Time at a data center, would you be willing to go into sort of what it is they do? I mean,
nope,
you
absolutely
mentioned
not. We can't talk
about it.
Top secret. Yes, of course.
First rule of Fight Club. So really, you said, and then the one I want to dig into, you said supporting local economies, supporting businesses.
Yeah.
So maybe how is it doing that? Mm-hmm. And then what type of equipment would be inside of it that would enable supporting business?
Yeah. So to start off with, let's just set some baseline data centers in general. Why do we even have them, right? So let's start there. So the internet, everybody's familiar with the internet. We're streaming on the internet right now. All of the traffic and the internet data has to live somewhere. The traffic runs through fiber assets in the ground. It connects to a data center somewhere. That's where this video will be uploaded. The podcast will be uploaded. It'll be stored in a data center. I will consume it once it's published. I'll go to that data center virtually and I'll pull that data down to my computer and I'll review it. That's, in essence, that's how technology, the internet, and most of our SaaS applications work today. So when I say data centers are supporting the economy, especially local economies, when we started in Volta and built the data center out in the cornfield, this was right after the completion of it was right after Cedar Rapids had a significant flood in 2008. They had over 8 feet of water in downtown Cedar Rapids. I mean, that's above the roof height in here, and that's devastating for a downtown, relatively flat area. I mean, that water destroyed businesses and shut down a community for a significant period of time. I mean, in fact, if you go to Cedar Rapids today, they're still rebuilding parts of downtown and making modifications to places to damage that happened in 2008. Okay, so what does a data center have to do with that? Well, when you think about business operations and your technology stack and where you're operating all of your back-end infrastructure from, it's got to live somewhere. Back in the day, it used to live, I don't know, in your basement closet in your corporate office, or it used to live in maybe you even had a small data center with a battery backup unit or something like that in it. A lot of times people put them in the basement because they don't want them, in their nice office space. They don't want to think too much about them. Well, purpose-built data centers really came along so that companies could get out of the business of worrying about where their data was. They don't have to think about, gosh, how do I make this more resilient? How do I back it up? If the utility power goes out, what do I do? How do I keep my infrastructure running, my data available for my teams that are traveling around the country doing surveying or whatever it is, right, that your business does? Think of it more applicably, banks or hospitals. I mean, they now run full digital systems. They don't have bank ledgers on paper anymore, and they don't, your electronic health record is not on paper anymore. It is quite literally digital. And so that has to live somewhere and be available all the time. And you as a patient wouldn't want your records to be unavailable for a doctor to make a life-saving decision. So when I say supporting communities and their growth, it's really that transition from let's move our data outside of our four walls into a data center that's purpose-built. It's designed to do this. It's meant to be up and available 100% of the time. And so that's what we did. I mean, that was the early days of data center development in the country. Now, if anybody's listening and they're going, wait a second, like that's not how it is today, and there's all these mega data centers, we can talk about that too. But that was our business, and we built co-location data centers across the country, serving many different needs. Healthcare, we did a lot of work in healthcare, just specifically at the time, meaningful use and the transition to electronic health records was being enforced by the federal government as a way to make our health data available as you move inter-system, things like that. But sorry, getting into the weeds on that. But yeah, that's what I would say about really supporting the economies in our communities, supporting businesses and their growth strategies, and just helping them be more resilient.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. So there are still data centers being built.
Yes.
And it feels like you said, bank ledgers are digital now. Healthcare records are available digitally. So what would the driver for a data center being built today be?
Mm-hmm.
Like why would you need more of them from your perspective?
Yeah.
If it feels like we've already gotten there.
Yeah. No, great question. Yeah, we haven't gotten there. I mean, that's just it. I think there isn't a there to get to. I think since the invention of the personal computer, Moore's law has taken place where, continuation of improvement in technology and the size and scale at which it can continue to expand. Just think about that for a second. Like technology has always advanced at a very rapid pace, right? And so with that, advancements in everything from little devices that we carry in our pockets today are just mini computers. Well, those didn't exist prior to 2008, right? That wasn't a thing. Like, sure, everybody had a Palm Pilot maybe, but that wasn't the same, right, as having these supercomputers in the palm of your hands. It literally is changing the way we work as society. And so that isn't slowing down. And I know there's a lot of us that are getting older that are longing back to the days where everything wasn't captured and recorded and photos of everything, those were great days, but those are long gone at this point. And nostalgia is one thing great to remember and honor, but I really don't see a future where we go backwards or technology slows down. It just is increasing.
So would things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, AI, drive the need for data? Because I mean, it seems like that landscape's evolving as well.
Yeah,
and even just trying to aggregate significant volumes of data and compute it to make faster decisions. Is that driving the need also?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you mentioned the buzzword, the AI piece.
We had to go there.
Well, we were going to go there at some point, of course. Yeah. AI is really interesting. I think it's so new, and people there. You have two camps. You have your early adopters, and they're out there doing mind-blowing things with this technology that's available. And the technology isn't just like, oh, now we have AI and this is the AI box that we all can play with. It is rapidly developing and enhancing and improving, so it even of itself as a technology that can be levered is evolving very quickly. Okay, so then you have this rapid adoption of people. We've all used ChatGPT, and We've all asked it, help me make a meal plan. Maybe we all haven't, but things like that. We've played with it in some sense, and it's like, okay, all right, maybe that's not the best use case for my business. There are real use cases, and they are out there, and people are quite literally changing the way that businesses and industries work with the adoption and the use cases of AI. So not just chatbots, like talking about truly creating automations and efficiencies inside of businesses. A lot of people say, it's coming to take my job. And I don't know. I mean, yes, maybe. When the wheel was invented, it probably took some manual labor jobs as well. Like, I don't really know, but I can't foresee the future that isn't incorporating more technology and AI into our workspaces. So back to your question. Sorry, I was rambling there a little bit, but thinking about data creation and the use of AI and machine learning, you have these data models that are, it's really interesting when you think about how these data models work and why, the GPUs instead of the old CPUs in our computers. You have these data models that exist, and how they work is quite fascinating. I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to wax on that, but they're huge, right? And the way they train these models with all the information that they put into them is huge. Now you're moving to a place of what's called inference, where you're taking those data models that have been trained and you're putting them to use case, like in your business or in my business. And now we're actually using those trained models. So you take a model of data from here, you put it over here. I'm using it from my own business works. It's creating its own knowledge and living space. I shouldn't use the word living. It's creating its own space where the data is now private to me. I don't want it over here. I want it over here. And so, yeah, you absolutely are seeing this proliferation of these models that are huge, and the compute power to use them or provide them is substantial.
Mm-hmm. Which is driving the data.
Which is ultimately driving, yes.
So you've been in manufacturing for some time, in building data centers. Yep. Are they sort of like outrageously complex to build? Or are they relatively simple? The processes that happen inside the walls. I imagine there's a lot that goes into it, but what would a layman description of that look like?
Sure.
Or sound like?
I've never built a really complex hospital, so I'm sure it's just as hard to build a big hospital as it is to build a data center. But data centers are actually relatively, yes, they're complex from their design and their structure. Like, you have to protect against, physical security. You have to protect against natural disasters. You have to protect against, we have to protect against snow load on our roof decks and things like that. But really, the buildings, they're robust concrete buildings, to protect against wind events or things like that. They have redundant power. So talk about backup power sources. You think about they have to have power to run the data center. So power delivery is really important. Having backup power on site is really important. And then cooling. And outside of that, sure, how you deliver all the cooling, I think it's really cool, but I don't think it's necessarily that complex. You're delivering cooling through ductwork, just like you do in your office, and you deliver it to a cabinet. Yes, the densities are much greater. Yes, the precision is much greater. But at the end of the day, it's a concrete box with power, and cooling. And that's some security. Like
cooling mostly glycol usually in your experience, and water. And is that water being pulled in and treated? Or is it? Question.
So there definitely is a conversation to be had about water usage. And there are cooling methodologies that can use water. It's a system called evaporative cooling, where you have your hot water that runs into a cooling tower, and then you mist water over the radiator fins, and then the air comes by, and evaporation is what causes the cooling to occur and the thermal transfer to occur in that loop of hot water or gas. We worked with closed loop systems in all of our designs. Reason being is that the closed loop design gives you maximum flexibility, where it's a tried and true system. Like, chilled water based systems have been used in commercial buildings, and they're used in stores, and it's just a tried and true system. It's not a bleeding edge, leading edge type thing. So what we always did is we were a fairly risk averse company. We just went with things that worked and had high capacities and gave us the most flexibility. So closed loop glycol chilled water systems do a really good job at transferring the heat from the data center, moving it outside to your chillers and bringing that cold loop back in. No water is injected into the system. I mean, it's a loop. Like if you think about a racetrack, like that's what it looks like. It's like it's got a few more curves and corners in it, but that's what it looks like. It comes inside the building at 44 degrees, 45 degrees, goes into the data center, goes by the air handlers that are blowing air in and comes back out the other side. That's how we did it. There's a lot of different like cooling technologies once you get into the data center, especially if you have a cooling loop. You can do things like you can put another chiller heat transfer station inside and you can get into like direct liquid cooling where you're taking this glycol mixture and then you're running it actually to the server equipment. I might be getting way too nerdy here,
makes sense. Yeah.
But you're actually running this cooling loop then. Think about like a little loop running across the chip on the server. Mm-hmm. Very effective at removing the heat directly from the chip itself. So there's all these really cool technologies.
My garage has a high efficiency boiler and in-floor heat in the winter. It just sounds a lot like that, right? Like it's taking water that's already in a closed loop system, glycol water mixture, running it through. And as it goes through, it's giving heat off, bringing cold water back in.
You got it.
So hot water out, cold water in.
Same principle, just in reverse. Like the data centers, their job is to get rid of heat. You're wanting to keep your garage floor warm, so it's nice and comfortable. So
I just need to build a house next to a data center.
Bingo. You're talking right in my like, man, this is like my ethereal sweet spot. I love the concept of coupling data centers with district energy systems. I have a friend who is the CEO for Evergreen Energy, and he and I have been talking for probably 2 years now about how do we create a system where you can actually couple a data center with a district energy system and use that hot water for good.
To heat a community or businesses.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
is that done? I mean, is that being done?
Absolutely done. They're doing it overseas. We should be doing it here in the United States as well. And there might be projects. So if anybody's listening, there might be projects I just don't know of. And I'm sure there are. But we should be doing it at scale. Why wouldn't we? From the operator's perspective, like as a data center operator, if I'm going to build a data center, I still have to build all my chillers. I have to be able to manage the data center and deliver it by myself. But what it does as a benefit to the data center is like, I don't have to have the operational expense of running the chillers. I can just send my hot water to you. You can use it, send me cold water back. We're best friends. Right? I mean,
that makes sense.
I love it. Like we should totally be doing this. So the Paris Olympics, the Olympic pool was heated from data center.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Isn't that fun? I mean, so it's being done. I mean, that was even something everybody saw and knows.
Yeah, I didn't know, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned redundant power, and that's something I've seen be in demand as well. And I mean, it seems like you said, like the technology evolution has happened and is happening, and at least for the moment, feels like it's happening at an accelerated pace than it ever has before. But I'm sure many generations said that.
Yeah.
When cell phones first came out, when the personal computer came out, when cell phones transitioned to what they are today. And there's been a lot of sort of evolutionary stages, especially in the past, really since the Industrial Revolution, right? So, and I'm not an expert on any of that, but it just feels like it's getting faster and faster and faster because now we've got artificial intelligence and it's available to us in real time. And it seems like there's no stopping it and you can't do it without these things. And so then I look at it from an energy perspective. Seems like there's significant demand. How much of a conversation do you think that is, or have you seen that be? Because you need to have that redundancy because you can't afford to have it go offline. Yeah. It probably drives a lot about where they're put, right?
It's driving a lot of secondary innovation, I would say. Like, how do we solve for that challenge? So I'll talk about like where they're being placed right now, because this is something that sort of became in the data center industry, probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago-ish. There was when you're sourcing a data center, when you're going to put it somewhere, you're thinking there's like a hierarchy of needs that you go through, like just like anything. If you're buying a house, like you're thinking about like, oh, I need this many bedrooms and I, need it on a dirt road or whatever your hierarchy of needs are.
You're balancing investment against ROI. And,
bingo. Yep. So there's risk. This hierarchy of needs, and these have changed dramatically. And what used to be like, I want to be in a geologically stable zone, I want to be close to main east-west or north-south internet, major traffic points, or I want to be whatever. Like those types of things are now like flipped on their head, and developers are looking for places where is there available power that is coupled with adjacent land. Like even if we have to extend the power to an adjacent land somewhere, like where do we have available power? And they're looking nationally and internationally, like where can we place data centers where there's power available today?
And in this power, sorry to interrupt you, but it seems to me like are there many, and maybe not it seems, but are there many to your knowledge that are relying on, cleaner forms of power like solar and or wind or hydroelectric?
Absolutely. There are absolutely value markers, like on that order of hierarchy. Like, okay, you have energy. What's it made of? Like, are we still burning coal? Is it gas? Like, how are you feeding? Is it nuclear? Is it wind? Is it solar? Those are absolutely important to some buyers. Not all buyers. Some buyers are just looking for power. They may not care.
Does it have to be there like now though, especially if it's sort of that redundancy or that backup? And are there challenges there that you encountered when designing them?
Yeah, the developers are looking for where there's power available right now or where they can get in the very near future. That is becoming less and less available. So now people are getting creative, right? They're getting creative about, well, we could bring in behind the meter generation and supply our own power for a while with our own systems. And then when the utility is available, then we'll connect to the utility power and we can shut off our behind the meter generation. And they're because of the availability and this need for more capacity as an industry as a whole, there is this balancing act going on of people getting really creative. And this is where the community conversation and the regional conversation becomes very important. We as a region need to, and I say we because obviously there's this hot button issue here in this region. We should be saying, here are the things that we would allow and here's the things that we would not allow to happen in our communities. So,
in the companies building these things, we may have heard of them, right? Amazon, Google, Microsoft, these massive organizations, multi-trillion-dollar market caps. Like they all have stated climate pledge goals, by certain dates. And it seems like maybe that's just paused for the moment in this. You call it like an analogous arms race to build these data centers to support things like, the digital things you just described. And so it seems logical that maybe in the future they'd probably augment, right? And maybe come back. And you don't know, I don't know. But really my question stems from, can they operate with a power source or in some capacity a power source that is transitory, or isn't always there when you need it? It can be
engineering wise, they can. I think that's where local regulations come into play, though. Like, can they, from a regulations perspective? That's the question that I would say needs to be answered. Engineers can come up with all kinds of cool ways to solve problems, and these companies are technologists. They solve problems as part of their industry. But I would say as a region, that's where we need to say, here's what we don't want you to bring your behind the meter solution and run your own power. We'll deliver you power at this location, and you'll permit for your air permits for your generation, just like any other project would. Things like that. Because there are some horror stories. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's like any industry, like any, there's gonna be a bad actor that there's probably a use case out there where someone wasn't a good community steward or they weren't. I don't know, whatever. Yep. Whatever the case is, there's bad people out there, right? So it doesn't make the entire industry evil, for sure. I mean, spoken as someone who operated in the industry, there are a lot of companies that are really, truly working to do good and, yes, run a business. Yep. Like, for-profit businesses employ people and they are looking to also do good. You talked about the sustainable goals. These companies still have sustainability goals. I mean, they still are pursuing other ways to reduce their carbon footprint. Power mix is very important. I think that's probably why you see a lot of interest in this area right now. Minnesota Power did a great job getting ahead of that energy mix that comes
in the past several decades.
You got it. Yeah. I mean, and that's something we should all be proud of is the work that they did to get this renewable energy mix into our regular energy usage here. That's why, make no mistake, like that's why people are looking.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So I'm going to stretch my thinking a little bit, and we haven't talked about this. So I'm curious to know if it's anything you're experienced with, or maybe know a little bit, because if you know a little bit, you know more than me. What might the impacts of quantum computing be on the need for data centers?
Ooh.
And I apologize, I didn't.
Yeah. No,
preface,
this is
like
fun.
we should have talked about that beforehand. So you knew I was going to ask it.
This is great. Like we could both sound like we maybe know or don't know. I probably don't know enough to be really maybe I know enough to be dangerous. Maybe that's how I should say it.
Yeah.
What I would say is the where quantum computing is and the promise of it is probably like where people were working on these true AI models, 10, 12 years ago, where they were like, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And the rest of us were like, sure, but how and what's it going to do? And even now, fastest adopted technology, AI, fastest adopted technology ever, right? Okay.
And by a wide margin. Like it's insane. I've seen some charts. And it's like, is that real?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It truly has changed how we work. Okay. So now you think about quantum computing in that same vein. Quantum computing truly does have the potential to disrupt quite everything that we know. And that's even, I'm actually a little like, oh, geez. People are like, well, what's quantum computing? I mean, quantum computing has this sort of unfederated ability to calculate and do computations like a CPU does at paces and rates magnitudes above what we can currently do today. So this thought about introducing qubits as this like other
they can be a 0, 1 or superposition both at the same time.
That's right. Yeah. Which is it, okay. Probably for most people that's like, what? What are you talking about? But that's mind-blowing, right? It upends how computers and servers and all of our infrastructure is today. Like it's a whole different way of working. So yes, does it have the ability to change the need for data centers? Quantum computers will still need a place to operate. I don't know the design of that. I don't know enough about the requirements and how they draw power.
I still think it's fascinating, even if we don't know that, to talk about the effects. Because I don't think many people know like what you said, but and I don't know it, but I know some people who know it and told me it's coming, and you try to do research, and it's like okay. And I think like if you look at order of magnitude on timeline, a decade's probably about right. Yeah, it's not 100 years from now. It's not 1 year from now. 10 years feels about right. And maybe it's 12, maybe it's 16, maybe it's 7. But in any event, it's coming. Yeah. It will be here. Yeah. And when it is, the way I like to think about it, and I don't know if this is true or not, I hadn't heard this, I was just thinking about it, like when you look back several decades ago and you look at the jump from what computers were known to be before I was born or when I was born, they take up a building and then they take up a room. It's almost like going from that computer that was in a room to where we are today is an evolutionary step. And going from where we are today to these, this is like different even from that, like that times whatever.
That's exactly right. And so there's a thing that comes along with quantum computing when quantum computing reaches, and you might have, and your viewers may have heard of this as well. It's called Q-Day. And Q-Day is when essentially
this isn't like Terminator Judgment Day, right?
Well, we don't know. Okay, yeah. I guess I don't know.
Q-Day.
I hope not.
I have not heard of this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Q-Day is essentially when quantum computing is to the point of production where essentially all of our algorithms that protect everything from our encryption Bluetooth devices to our mobile phones to this, uploading this podcast, like all of the encryption is done with basically a encryption key that hashes, and it's known to be safe and secure right now. Quantum computing,
it's gone.
It's gone. Like it can solve that in what we can't solve today with computers. Yeah, it can solve that.
Well, it goes beyond just technology, it's science, right? Because at least the reading I've done, you can predict chemical reactions. Yeah. Predicting chemical reactions in ways that humans, computers, mathematics today just can't. Yeah. You start to solve medical breakthroughs and things like that. That's right. It's hard to really predict what the future is going to look like.
That's exactly right. And I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. Yeah. Like there are the good things that come along with it as well. Being able to solve things that we just truly can't solve today. It just there's no science to solve it, or it would take decades, or our research right now. So Yeah.
Yeah. And I only ask because it's like we're talking about energy and greener forms of energy or cleaner forms of energy using the tools available to us today. And it's like, are there things that will come, probably in the next 2 decades that really change everything? It's exciting to talk about, hard to predict.
Can I turn the table a little bit and
Please.
ask you a question? So like thinking about how data centers and their demand and draw for energy, right? They're thinking about different regions and different locales. Like how does that demand for energy creation and transportation impact your business? Like how are you seeing that?
Yeah, well, in some respects, not yet.
Okay.
Think of, and this is an opinion, not fact. Like this is just as much as I've thought about it, sort of the best I can tell. Where we work most is in the design and maintenance. It's hard to be quiet. I know I'm moving, right? In the design, maintenance, and really operational readiness of what we call midstream infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So upstream is exploration of anything really, but minerals or in this case, natural resources. And then midstream, it's like bringing it up and cleaning it. Midstream is moving it long distances. And then what we call downstream or distribution is bringing it to an end user or consumer. And so we're in the midstream space predominantly, not exclusively, but it's the bulk of our work because it's when you're moving the most product and it's running at the highest pressures. It's when your consequence of failure is the highest, which means that the regulations around it and the risk around it, risk profile and regulatory landscape, necessitate the need for professionals to support ensuring it runs safely. And that protects the environment, it protects people and the communities around it and where it may operate, and it protects the interests of the people who are owning it and sending it, the people who are buying it, and those who are transporting it, right? So there's a lot bigger demand in that market because of the consequence of failure to all parties involved. So we work predominantly in midstream space, again, not exclusively. And if you look at sort of what a data center is driving or pulling, it seems like it's power consumption. And you then say, well, what are the ways that power is created? And there's only so many ways it's created today. And there are some really rapidly growing sectors like solar, growing at a much faster rate than any other. But at the same time, the volume it services and the volume it services relative to the demand growth is significantly larger and seems to be growing as well. So, for me, what, I see today, and maybe a bit on a soapbox, but is, people in our communities are demanding cleaner energy. Not wanting, not hoping, demanding. And it seems like investors who drive most things, whether this is Wall Street or private investment, are following those demands. And so with that, there hasn't been a lot of investment that I've seen nationally or domestically in increasing supply. And so there's been and predominantly I'm talking about like pipelines because you can't really transport this stuff on the roads. You don't want it there.
Right.
And so supply, there's been a couple of big projects that have run into, I think, significant hurdles due to public opposition and permit challenges, and even if the federal government allows these permits to go through for them to be able to build this infrastructure to support things like data centers, the state governments each have their own perspectives and capabilities. And I'm not advocating for or saying against, just frankly, demand is increasing exponentially or significantly. Like power consumption over the last 20 years the demand for that has been relatively flat. And so we've gone through this awesome experience of switching, right? We've seen our coal-fired plant switch to natural gas fire, which is far cleaner.
That's right.
Like far, far cleaner, less emissions. And then there's even appetite for, like you talked about, Minnesota Power and the work they've done in their clean energy group, Elite Clean Energy. And when they have the foresight on that was how long ago was that started? So it's been some really cool things happening, but demand's growing. And what I've seen is, what are the ways you can power it? Well, nuclear certainly is a viable,
but it's
to my
expensive
knowledge,
and it takes forever.
It's not there in time, right? So to get that permitted and a community feeling safe around it.
And the cost per kilowatt hour?
It's just not practical that it comes in time to deliver the need and the growth that we're seeing in power consumption. I don't think. Minnesota Power, somebody from there would be far better to answer this question than me. Right. But for our industry, I think that there's a real argument for natural gas. And there's gas to electric generators where you can take natural gas, deliver it to the site, convert it on site to power or electricity to service this end use. And there's been some of that, right, with the data center growth that's happened. That's what's happening now. My fear, and I don't know this, but my fear is that we're not, these assets are also serving communities. And, who wins when there's a crisis or when there's a shortage, right? And there's not a lot of surplus, it doesn't feel like right now. And the industry has taken probably a decade off, since 2014, 2015, there has not been significant volume of investment in new infrastructure, only the maintenance of existing. A lot of this infrastructure has been around for...
It's old.
It's been around for a minute. And so still serviceable, and a lot of energy and dollars and work and hard work goes into maintaining it. But the reality is we've got, for the first time in a couple of decades, significant power demand growth and energy demand growth domestically. And in the last 10 years, there hasn't been a lot of investment in the infrastructure to maintain it. So, if I had a crystal ball, it would be that at some point things get older and older and older and aren't serviceable anymore. And when that happens, well, there's not enough product to support our way of life today. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be some situations, whether it's now or 10 years from now, that drive a shortage somewhere, which will cause people to ask, why did this happen? How can we allow this to happen here locally? And what are we doing about it? And so, from a new investment standpoint, there hasn't been a lot of reaction to it that I can tell. That doesn't mean it won't come, or there aren't plans in the works that I'm not aware of. But because I am in predominantly designing new infrastructure, our team members are, and maintaining existing, I would say, we expect that the maintenance is going to continue to grow because there will be pressure to continue operating the assets that are already in the ground today. From a new design perspective, we've seen some movement, but certainly not at the clip that you've seen the demand grow. But I think so there has to be, I don't know if it's a whiplash effect, or there has to be a consequence of that at some point.
Well, I mean, energy has, it has to come from a creation, right? It has to come from a creation source. It's neither destroyed nor
created nor destroyed.
It just
laws of thermodynamics.
You got it, right? So, it has to be transitioned into energy generation somewhere. That has to come from somewhere. We love the renewable stories, but we have to have enough to power society, I think. And that's where a lot of the public discourse comes in. It's like, okay, but wait a second, we have this data. Do we need this data center? And I think need is an interesting
and I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, well, not do we? I don't know. I agree. Do we need AI? I don't know. I could get by without it.
I have feelings on that, but I don't know that we're going to be able to change the course of it at this point.
That's exactly that. That maybe is kind of where my mind was going. I don't know that we can necessarily dictate that. But when we get to the energy question, you said you had kind of this fear of like, well, what happens if we run out, and what happens if we run into a situation where we don't have enough? And today that happens on micro levels. Like I'll just say when I was in the data center industry, like every contract we entered into with a utility company or utility provider, there's a process for interruption, like where they can say, hey, we're at a high peak moment and we have the right to interrupt your delivery. And they tell you that. And we sign a contract and say we accept that. For data centers, it's, you have backup of everything. You have a redundant of everything, right? You have a redundant electrical system. So you're like, okay, well, give us ample notice. We'll go on our generators. We'll operate on genset.
So that's great to hear.
So we can ride through those things. Or if there is a natural disaster in an area or community, you can ride those things through. So, there is some flexibility in the design. Interesting.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
In terms of next steps for you and what you've done, you've transitioned a little bit. I really want to keep talking about the data centers, but at the same time, I want to hear a little bit about what you're doing today, because you said you've moved on to Giant Voices or Giant now, and you want to change the world. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. I can't not dig into that, but I just want to make one last comment and say that, I do plan to have I won't call it a series on this, but there's an employee we have that's like, I'll call him at least in my mind, an AI power user that has had so many cool experiences on how it's changed his way of life and our employees and some of the things you were talking about earlier in not just changing our work processes, but reinventing them entirely. And so I'm bringing him on when he can be here next. He lives in Texas. But then, I really am hoping to bring somebody in from Minnesota Power.
Yeah.
But also, just different threads around this to get different perspectives because like you said, there's no change. And also the different forms of energy. A person that's pretty intelligent on, the laws of thermodynamics and far more than me.
Or me.
and sort of hear what their experience has been, what their perspective is, and, what improvements can we make as a society in our day-to-day lives. So I appreciate you being here because there's just such a buzzword around AI and data centers that, I feel like most people don't know what that is and was hoping to give them just a brief introduction as to what they are.
Yeah.
So it helped me to hear about it.
That's great. And I'll just close with this thought. I'm certainly not opposed to people raising questions or ideas or is this development good for our community? Like that, as citizens of any community, we should be asking that for any development. So yeah, we can ask questions. What I would offer is that if you or any of your listeners ever have like, hey, I just don't understand this. Can you help me? Like I want people to understand how data centers work and how they don't work. Because I've watched them all. There's a lot of videos out there of really bad stories that, that's just not how data centers work. So I'd be happy to answer questions factually, but not necessarily tell you should or shouldn't want a data center in your backyard because that's a different story.
Yeah, 100%. And wasn't planning to get any of that, so that's good. But I think being available for people. We'll see. Maybe I think we can post things if you have other links or resources that are in your mind, like effectively educational on what things do. Yeah, we might be able to put them in the show notes. Sure. Talk to our producer.
Sure, great.
So we got a few minutes left. Transitioning to Giant, what are you doing today? I'm sure that we could probably start a new one right now, but and maybe we have you back.
Real briefly, so who's Giant and what do we do? Like, if I were to describe Giant to you in what we do, we kind of break our business up into a couple different, facets of what we do and how we do it. But one side of our business, maybe more of the standard productized side of our business, is we really work with other businesses to help them align their sales strategy with their marketing strategy at its simplest term. And what does that mean and what does that look like? So, traditional marketing, you think about, we're going to have some logoed mugs like you have there, your cat dad mug.
You get me in trouble.
Busted.
Yep.
Your traditional marketing, your flyers and your brochures and things that your business cards that we all have. But how do you actually take the spend where you're investing in your brand and you're telling your story, and then you actually find your ideal customer profile that sales is telling you these are our customers. This is who we want to sell to, and these are the products that we want to sell to them. How do you take your marketing engine and then drive people to your sales engine? And that's what we do. We help businesses really get aligned around their strategy, their shared goals, their KPIs on how those two organizations work today. Typically, they don't think of like one stacking on top of the other, and typically they don't think about them being the same activity. They usually think of them sitting side by side in an organization. I have my world, you have your world. We really break down those barriers, and we do it through very intelligent digital content creation and then, testing and iterating and testing and iterating. It's real nerdy stuff, but our team is really good at it and helping clients build strategies and then execute those strategies really to drive business growth is ultimately what one portion of our business does. And then on the other side of our business, we do a lot on what we would call like reputation acceleration or brand acceleration, like thinking about your business. We solve really strategic and difficult challenges that your business may have. So thinking about, hey, we're going through a significant growth curve and we don't quite know how to to take our message from a local message to a national message. Like, what's the strategy behind that? How do we accomplish that? That's just a small example, but those types of things. Or maybe how do we build community engagement for this new product or platform? And, we really want to get end users in a place where we're not, and we want to build this ecosystem of humans to give us real human capital back. And as far as feedback, that side of the business is very abstract and fun because we get to work with a lot of different businesses with a lot of different challenges. So that's kind of two sides of our business. We have about 30 employees. We have an office downtown Duluth, and we have remote employees, just like every other company, kind of spread across the country. But it's been really fun. So I joined as the Chief Experience Officer, and how I describe that to people is my role is thinking about how to remove friction. And friction isn't necessarily bad. It just exists in all businesses. And so thinking outward, like how we work with our clients today, and just really learning about the processes that we're doing and how we're interacting and delivering services, and where are the points that maybe just feel a little rough around the edges and can be streamlined. That's like, we can make those better, and we can improve client outcomes and client how they perceive working with us. I love that kind of stuff. So that's like the outward side of my job. And then the inward side, that's really like people. Like, so the humans in the business, like, how do we help our employees like grow? And how do we be more intentional about thinking about their time at the business and thinking about the friction they experience in the business? Like, any business has that stuff, right? So how do you help employees really get the most out of their day? And it's not like we're, serving up gold bullion on a plate or something like that. I don't mean that. I just mean like simple things like,
and it's not ping pong tables and beanbag chairs either.
No, right. Yeah. You're thinking about like, oh, this process comes in and it always disrupts my day, and I have to always stop what I'm doing and respond to this thing. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. What is that? And how do we solve that with processes of people, technology, whatever the thing is? A lot of times those things are solvable. So it's just thinking about those types of processes to make our client experiences better and our employee experience. That's how I describe my job. It's really fun.
Was it a new role, or was it a created one?
It was a new
role. A lot about the business too.
Yeah, it was a new role. Yeah, I mean, really, Lisa, Gina, and Lauren they have a vision for what they saw as how I could join the organization, and when we were having the conversations, we started thinking about where the business could go. And that's where it gets really fun, like starting to dream about how we can take what we're doing and then really build great humans and new entrepreneurs in a community, and then help them grow into business owners and operators. And we probably don't have enough time, but we have this whole like concept on how to really change Main Street and change people's lives through the investment of small business. And so that's a different topic, but really fun.
Just thinking about your role, it's really interesting. It's almost like human resources, but not human resources in a way.
Yeah.
And with a very specific focus on improvement. And I like how it's external and internal. Yeah. As you were talking about it, I was just thinking about the book, Who Not How, if you've heard of it, maybe you have, but really talks a lot about, you think about what do you do in a given day? And not every job has the ability for a person to think like this, but in a professional working setting, a lot of times you do. What is it that I do that I get energy from, and what do I give energy to? And he also talks about how, procrastination is gold, because the things you love doing, you don't procrastinate on. You do them right away. You do them readily. They give you energy. And there's things you do that it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And what I think if a person was really to do an audit on themselves in their day, if you find that most of the things you're doing, you don't like doing.
That's right.
And you actually just found somebody who liked doing those things, so that you could be freed up to do the things you love to do, you start to get exponential results in return. And so, I won't go into all of it, but it reminded me of that when you said that, like, what is it that you have for hangups? What really bothers you? What demotivates you? Yeah. Because those are things that truly impact businesses.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I worked in business before where it felt bleak, where it's like, there's no fixing this. Yeah. everybody's frustrated all the time, and that's no fun. But I think there is hope. It's just a matter of where do we make investment.
There is. And I think the one comment I would make about what you said about finding people that want to do the thing that you're maybe not good at or you're struggling with, I mean, that's just the development of a good team. Like if making good teams be functional and bringing people in, like it's super easy to hire the person that thinks like you, right? Like, oh, you think like me, we're going to work great together. But it's really actually more valuable to hire the person that offsets your weakness, right? And can pick up and yes, interpersonal relationships are important in any case, but building a team of strong, balanced individuals that you each have certain strengths and you can recognize those strengths and work together, that's like gold.
Love that. And I really appreciate you being on.
Yeah.
It was a terrific meeting you, and thanks so much for educating me and hopefully our viewers and listeners. And looking forward to working with you more.
Yeah, same here. It was really fun. Thank you for the time.
That's a wrap on this episode of Manic Energy, where the only constant is change. If you're fired up, do us a solid. Follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to a friend. Got questions, ideas, or a topic you want us to dig into? Drop us a line at the link in the show description. Thanks for riding the current with us. Until next time, stay charged.